due to a slight deviation of a few centimeters in the air cushion. A firefighter, while saving someone, fell from a 100-meter-high building. Strangely, he didn't shatter on impact but instead stood up completely unharmed, walking over to greet the girl he had just saved. However, the girl's parents completely ignored their lifesaver. As he stood confused, he seemed to hear someone calling his name. He turned towards the sound and saw a man and a woman in black clothing, both smiling as they watched him. The man quickly gestured for the pair to leave, but when he turned around, he saw an even stranger sight. Lying on the ground was none other than himself. It turned out that he had already sacrificed his life. These two individuals were the hellish messengers sent to escort his soul, and his soul was no ordinary one. The messengers were particularly excited because they had made a pact with the King of Hell, agreeing to escort 49 important souls, and upon completing this, they would be allowed to reincarnate immediately. The man, Taizyan, was the 48th soul they had been searching for. However, Taizyan was not ready to accept this, as he had not yet had the chance to say a proper goodbye to his mother. But it was beyond his control. The messengers immediately summoned a teleportation circle and sucked him into it, sending him to hell for the sevenfold judgment which he had to pass in order to reincarnate. Upon arrival, Taizyan saw a grim scene, with severed limbs and lingering souls of the recently deceased everywhere. The group leader, Old Zhang, was already there waiting for him. However, Taizyan was not interested in talking to anyone as he just wanted to return home to see his mother. When the female messenger inserted the command symbol into the mechanism, the symbol lit up with a big character for righteousness. This indicated that Taizyan was indeed a righteous soul, and they had not made a mistake in choosing him. As a rare noble soul, he was also granted the right to jump the queue. The messengers would sail across the bright river to the sloth hell, where King Chujiang would judge whether Taizyan had wasted his life. The female messenger gave Taizyan a thumbs up, as they discovered that there was no accusation in sloth hell. This meant they wouldn't need to defend themselves and could safely pass through. Everyone was excited, but Old Zhang was still uneasy. He reminded Taizyan that no matter what King Chujiang asked, he must not answer and should let them handle it. Sure enough, after King Chujiang reviewed Taizyan's life, he was deeply moved. Not only did he dismiss the charges against Taizyan, but he also wanted to build a bronze statue in his honor. Taizyan had spent his life saving others selflessly, even valuing the lives of animals over his own. However, when King Chujiang asked why he worked so hard, Taizyan forgot Old Jiang's advice and blurted out that it was for money. This shocked everyone present, and King Chujiang's smile faded. In hell, worshipping money was equated with worshipping false gods, the opposite of the divine, and one must face the harshest punishment. At King Chujiang's command, Taizyan was placed on a bamboo raft, which began floating toward a cliff. Beneath the cliff was an enormous millstone surrounded by countless souls. These souls were all punished for their laziness in life, running endlessly on the millstone. And if they slackened for even a moment, they would be mercilessly ground into dust. If they tried to escape into the water, they would become the food for piranhas. The horrific scene terrified Taizyan, and his legs buckled, causing him to collapse on the bamboo raft. The two messengers immediately jumped into the water, using their bodies to block the raft, and pleaded with King Chujiang on Taizyan's behalf. They explained that Taizyan had spent his days fighting fires, and his nights working at a barbecue restaurant. On weekends, he scrubbed floors at a bathhouse and even worked overtime delivering food. He had never taken a proper break, and when he died, he had nothing to his name. All the money he earned went to his sick mother and his younger brother still in school. Despite his sacrifice, Taizyan was still penniless. Moved by Taizyan's selflessness, King Chujiang decided to pardon him and declared him innocent. The group safely passed through the first trial, but during their journey to the second hell, Old Zhang suddenly stopped and pushed Taizyan into a tree trunk. He summoned numerous sharp, spiked vines that tightly bound Taizyan, causing him to cry out in pain. This was punishment for disobeying his instructions and almost endangering everyone. Old Zhang scolded Taizyan, explaining that the trials in the sevenfold hell were ranged from lightest to heaviest, and any mistake could nullify their progress. As they reached the second trial, they arrived at the hell of boiling oil, known as the hell of murder. They thought this would be the easiest trial, as a firefighter who saved lives surely had no connection to murder. However, to their surprise, Taizyan was accused of a crime. Despite his protests claiming he had never harmed anyone, the ground beneath him cracked open, revealing a scene of tortured souls burning in hellfire. The air reeked of burnt flesh and cries of pain echoed throughout. Taizyan was horrified, but driven by his instincts as a firefighter, he reached out to save the souls, only to be frightened into letting go when a furious voice boomed from above. It was the king of the hell of boiling oil, a menacing figure. The judge immediately presented the charges. During a firefighting mission, Taejeon had failed to save a colleague who was trapped by a heavy stone, indirectly causing the colleague's death. If found guilty, Taejeon would face 5 years of intense fire torture. This time, Taejeon followed Old Jeong's advice and left the defense to him. Old Jeong then revealed a heartbreaking story. When Taejeon's colleague was trapped, Taejeon used all his strength but couldn't budge the stone. In a critical moment, they heard someone calling for help, and the colleague urged Taejeon to save the person first and find someone else to rescue him. However, by the time Taejeon returned, the building had collapsed and his colleague had perished. Despite this, Taejeon saved 8 more lives. The king of the hell of boiling oil, though fierce in appearance, had a compassionate heart and deeply admired Taejeon's noble sacrifice. He immediately dismissed the charges and declared him innocent. The group continued their journey to the next trial, but was unexpectedly attacked by numerous monsters. The 2 messengers quickly summoned their weapons and engaged in a fierce battle. During the fight, Old Jeong told Taejeon that this attack must be caused by a relative of his who had died unjustly and turned into an evil spirit. Taejeon immediately thought of his sick mother. After dealing with all the monsters, Old Jeong decided to personally return to the mortal world to uncover the truth. However, he discovered that Taejeon's mother was still alive, but she seemed to be mute and deaf. To conceal his identity, Old Jeong claimed that Taejeon had once saved his life, and he had come to mourn after hearing of his savior's death. His acting was so convincing that it instantly earned the elderly woman's trust. But just as she turned to leave, Old Jeong's expression suddenly darkened. It turned out that Taejeon's younger brother, who had died unjustly, was the one haunting him. Upon realizing he had been discovered, the brother quickly turned into a gust of wind and fled. But Old Jeong would not let him harm the mortal world, so he drew his sword and chased after him. Though it was daytime, vengeful spirits could only travel quickly by attaching themselves to power lines, and the brother was familiar with the terrain, allowing him to escape after a brief chase. Unable to catch him, Old Jeong went to the military base where the brother had served, hoping to uncover the truth behind his wrongful death. However, the truth was heartbreaking. It turned out that the brother had been accidentally shot by a new recruit during a mission. When the lieutenant arrived, worried about his promotion, he not only failed to help but ordered the new recruit to dispose of the body. Unbeknownst to them, the brother was still alive when they buried him alive. He suffered in agony, unable to die, for an entire day before taking his last breath. The heartless lieutenant spread rumors that the brother had been a deserter. His mother nearly fainted upon hearing the news. The resentment and humiliation led the brother to turn into a vengeful spirit after his death. Seeking revenge, Old Jeong sympathized with the elderly woman's suffering, so he took it upon himself to dig up the brother's body, hoping to give him a dignified burial. Unfortunately, this act was witnessed by another messenger. There were strict rules in the underworld that vengeful spirits who died unjustly had to be eliminated and their bodies must be destroyed as well. Old Jeong, however, disregarded these rules. If the king of hell found out, both he and the elderly woman would never be allowed to reincarnate. Though their stances differed, the brother finally consented to Old Jeong's actions. In order to capture the brother's vengeful spirit, Old Jeong followed the new recruit to a nightclub, knowing he would come looking for revenge. Sure enough, as the new recruit was enjoying himself in the middle of the dance floor, he was unaware that the brother was trying to dislodge the ball lights above him to kill him. At the critical moment, Old Jeong intervened. After a brief chase, Old Jeong learned from his previous experience and turned his weapon into an iron chain, securely trapping the brother to a steel tower. He hoped to convince the brother to give up his revenge and return to the underworld to face judgment. However, the brother's resentment was too great, and the sudden outburst of power not only broke the chains but also caused a brief power outage in the entire city. After escaping from Old Jeong, the brother once again found the new recruit, intending to take his life. Unexpectedly, the recruit had located the brother's mother and told her the truth, even marking the location of his burial on a map. It turned out that the recruit had always felt guilty, because the brother had been the only one in the unit to treat him kindly. But out of his own cowardice, he had conspired with the lieutenant. Now that he had cleared his conscience, he decided to sacrifice himself to atone for his sins. Just as the new recruit was about to suffocate, the brother suddenly appeared and asked Old Jeong to spare the recruit's life. In exchange, he would surrender and follow Old Jeong back to the underworld for judgment. Old Jeong, moved by his loyalty, saved the recruit and relayed to him that the brother no longer held any resentment and hoped he could live a good life. After the recruit agreed, the brother's anger was finally quelled. Meanwhile, Taizyan had successfully passed through the first 3 levels of the underworld, which included the Hell of Liars, guarded by the king of Mount Tai. If one had lied during their lifetime and was found guilty after death, the punishment would be the cruel removal of their tongue. There was also the Hell of Injustice, guarded by the king of 5 senses, where any crimes that had been evaded in life would be magnified, and the punishment was to be frozen in ice for hundreds of years. The 5th level was the Hell of Betrayal, ruled by Emperor Song, where those who had betrayed others in life would be trapped in a mirror and shattered into countless pieces. These were all challenges that the virtuous Taizyan overcame easily. However, things took an unexpected turn when he reached the 6th level, the Hell of Violence. The judge accused him of having abused his severely malnourished younger brother during high school. This had led Taizyan to leave home and never return for the next 15 years without ever apologizing or seeking forgiveness. With the evidence presented, King Kingur immediately rejected the messenger's defense and decided to carry out the punishment. The stones under Taizyan's feet collapsed, and he was about to fall into the endless whirlpool when, in a desperate moment, the messengers contacted Old Zhang for advice. But Old Zhang was busy preparing the brother's remains and could not leave. So he suggested a compromise to combine the judgment for this hell with the final level. Though this would solve the immediate problem, the cost would be severe. If Taizyan could not prove his innocence, he would face multiple punishments and would not only be barred from reincarnation, but also the 3 messengers who defended him would suffer the same fate. Despite the danger, there was no other choice and they decided to take the risk. However, they had forgotten that the final judgment would be the deepest sin. Meanwhile, upon hearing the truth, the mother went to the military base, holding a banner to clear her son's name. Fearing that the truth would be exposed, the lieutenant roughly pushed her to the ground, causing her to faint. This scene was witnessed by the brother, and no child could bear to see their frail mother treated like that. His anger erupted again, and with his skin peeling away, he transformed back into a vengeful spirit. He easily broke free from his restraints, grabbed Old Zhang by the neck, and threw him miles away. The brother then transformed into a giant whirlwind and swept the lieutenant into a sandstorm. Old Zhang rushed to the rescue, but the brother's power was too strong and he couldn't keep up. Helpless, Old Zhang called for help and another messenger appeared from the sky. With his powers, he managed to strike the brother to the ground. But it was only a temporary setback. The brother quickly regained his strength and launched another attack. Even with 2 messengers working together, they were no match for him. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, the brother suddenly stopped his assault. He realized that his actions in the underworld had caused his older brother to sink into quicksand and nearly lose his soul. To save his brother, he chose to give up his revenge and allowed Old Zhang to subdue him. Meanwhile, Taizyan faced his final trial in the Hell of Family. The King of Hell did not give him a chance to explain and declared him guilty, because on the night of his abuse, he had also tried to smother his unconscious mother with a pillow. Such a parricide was unforgivable. However, the female messenger disagreed. At the time, the mother had been in a deep coma, and the 2 brothers had been unable to support the family. Taizyan, in a moment of impulse, thought that ending the lives of everyone would be a form of relief. However, he never caused the great tragedy he feared. Over the years, he had worked tirelessly to provide for his family, attempting to redeem himself. To save Taizyan, the female messenger even dared to defy the King of Hell. To convince her, the King of Hell used the karmic mirror to restore the past scene. At that time, the mother had regained consciousness but did not try to stop him because she knew that only if she died could her 2 sons live better lives. For all these years, she had lived with a knife in her heart, waiting for her lost son to return home. But the news she received was his sacrifice. Upon learning the truth, Taizyan immediately knelt and begged the King of Hell, willing to accept any punishment as long as he could apologize to his mother face to face. He thought it was too late, but just as the judgment was being delivered, the underworld suddenly shook violently. It turned out that the brother had entered the mother's consciousness through a dream via Old Zhang. Smiling, he used sign language to tell his mother that he had been chosen to become a great judge in heaven and could no longer continue to serve her. He also asked for her forgiveness for his older brother's past mistakes. His heartfelt words moved everyone, including the cold-hearted judge. Miraculously, the mother, who had been mute all her life, spoke for the first time. Seeing this, Taizyan rushed to his mother, kneeling and crying, apologizing over and over again. Even the King of Hell was moved by the family's love. Since Taizyan had been forgiven by his mother, there was no reason to punish him. The King of Hell immediately tore up the judgment and declared Taizyan innocent. He passed all the trials and could immediately reincarnate to start his next life. Before leaving, Taizyan bowed deeply to the messengers. thanking them for their efforts on his behalf. The female messenger gave him a big thumbs up, hoping he would have a happy life in his next incarnation. Meanwhile, back in the mortal world, old Zhang discovered that the brother was the last important person they were looking for. Through their conversation, old Zhang learned that the one who had stopped him from saving the brother's soul had not been the real messenger but the king of hell in disguise. His purpose was to test old Zhang. If he had respected the rules and abandoned his humanity, he would have missed this opportunity and might have to wait for another 1,000 years. But escorting vengeful spirits through 7 levels of hell would be fraught with difficulty, whether for his own sake or for the brother's chance at reincarnation. Old Zhang and the messengers would protect him to the end.